Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome to CoreLight's Spiritual Weather Report for March 2021. This is Brad, and Leslie's here with me, and we're here in South Africa, as always. I was just saying before we started the recording, it's been a beautiful summer here. So I know most of you are in the Northern Hemisphere, so I'm sending you some warm summer wishes, so to help warm you up a little bit until it becomes summer in the U.S., or spring at least. Spring is on the horizon, so I hope you're hanging in there with the cold. I'm welcoming all of those who are longtime CoreLighters as well as those who might be new to CoreLight. And in case you're new, here's how these calls work. Leslie is here with me, and she remains in silence. And during the call, she gives a transmission of healing energy, which is known as Shakti in the East. It's an uplifting, healing energy. So we'll speak more about that, but you can tune in and meditate during the call if you like and feel that, receive it. We'll start the call by my offering a guided meditation, and then I'll speak about the prevailing energies that are affecting us all as I see them, and also about the spiritual principles that are most helpful for us right now. So we'll have time at the end of the call for questions and answers and sharing. And if you're on the web call, you can type in your questions on the Q&A board, and I'll read them, and I'll read as many as I can. And you can always email us in advance if you have questions, and the email address is courses@corelight.org. Courses@corelight.org. So for next time, if you want to send in questions, you can send them in advance. And today, I'm getting a strong inner prompting to open up the microphone for questions and sharing, and that's something we normally don't do. We haven't done it for almost a year now, but I'm getting a really strong message to do that. So we'll be doing that at the end of the call. So if you have something you'd like to share or a question you'd like to ask, please write it down, which helps everybody clear on what we want to say, and that we'll keep it a little concise so that there's time for others to share, participate. And I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to hearing from you. We've always enjoyed hearing from the community. So we'll close the session today with a brief guided meditation or prayer or whatever we have time for, as always. And we try to keep these calls to roughly 2 hours, and sometimes they go a little long. But if you have to leave before the call ends, it's not a problem. You can always listen to the recording later, and we send the link out to our email list. It's also posted on YouTube. So if you want that link, you can always just sign up for our email list at corelight.org, and you'll get those emails. So before we start the guided meditation, I wanted to just share something a little personal with you. I just had an experience that was so much fun, so inspiring. I was away for 2 weeks. I left home here in Limpopo province, South Africa, and I traveled to the Western Cape, which is the state or province here in South Africa. And I was filming for those 2 weeks with my friend Anna Breitenbach for an online course that we're planning to co-teach this year, and it's called For the Love of Animals. If you don't know Anna, she's an interspecies communicator. She had a YouTube video that went viral, so a lot of people know her as the animal communicator. And she's been a friend for a very long time, and she's been a guest speaker on the CoreLight calls many times, and we've been friends for a long time. So we had a lot of fun together. The course is going to be partly pre-recorded and partly live, and we're not sure of the dates yet, but we'll keep you posted. And the title, for those of you who've been around CoreLight for a long time, you might remember that title, For the Love of Animals. It's the same title as a course that Anna offered through CoreLight many years ago. But this is going to be different. We're using the same title, but it'll be a different course. So I'm really inspired because it feels really relevant for our times. And for the first time, we're connecting the work we do at CoreLight with the work Anna does with animal communication in a way that we haven't done before. I won't go into the details, but it was inspired a long time ago when Leslie's guides prompted us to live here, to get this piece of land here that we live on at the base of the sacred mountain, Modimole. And they said, they kind of whispered in her ear, they said, one of the reasons that we want you to be here is we want you to plant seeds in consciousness about interspecies communication, about connecting with the natural world. And they said one day the fences will come down and people and animals will live together as we once did long ago, but in a new way, in a new harmonious way. And so we've been doing that in our own way. If you've been around a while, you know that we've we've been doing that in our way, in many different ways. But the truth is that if we look at that as a collective, or even on our personal journeys, that would be an outpicturing. For the fences to come down, it would be an outpicturing of the veils of separation coming down within us. So the first step in that journey is that we focus on the inner work, the self-discovery work or the self-inquiry work. And as we dissolve those veils of separation, then the outer fences would come down. And they said it won't happen in our lifetimes, but that this is the time to plant those seeds. So I get really excited about this work. We've never really dived in this way, but this is our first big dive into that world of interspecies communication. So the course essentially is about the fact that there's such a lack of love in the world, and so many people are feeling a sense of disconnection these days. So we're all being offered this amazing opportunity right now to choose connection instead of separation, and to choose love over fear. So that's what the course is about. We're going to be teaching how to deepen into new levels of inner quiet and how to live more from the heart, and how to strengthen our intuitive communication skills. So yeah, anyway, I wanted to share that right off the bat because it's what I'm really inspired about right now. So like I said, I'll keep you posted on these calls. I'll let you know when we pick dates. And if you haven't had a chance to watch Anna Breitenbach's videos on YouTube, give yourself a treat and go just type in Animal Communicator Anna Breitenbach, BREYTENBACH, and you'll see there's some amazing videos there. She's a very skilled animal communicator, and one of her videos has over 7 million hits. So it's the one about Spirit the Black Leopard. So anyway, keep you posted. As I said, we'll talk about it on these calls, but also by email. Okay, so without further ado, why don't we go ahead and start our guided meditation. And once again, I welcome you. If you were late coming in, I'm going to speak a little bit about how this guided meditation works. My spouse, my life partner Leslie, is here with us. She's remaining in silence, and she's sending a transmission of Shakti, which is healing energy. So I invite you now to close your eyes and get comfortable. Take a few long, slow, deep breaths. And relax. Long, slow inhales. Long, slow exhales. Just becoming very receptive, very still, very relaxed. And whether you're with us live today or listening to the recording later, it doesn't matter, because we're all part of this field and we're all connected. Time and space don't really exist except in the third dimension. So at this level of our meditation, of our healing transmission, there is no time and space. So we are one field. as we connect in the one heart. So as you breathe and as you relax, I invite you to tune in to those other levels of reality beyond time and space, where we're all connected in unity of the heart and of the mind, unity of love. And we'll be receiving this transmission of light through the entire call. So you can remain meditative and relaxed throughout the call and receive the transmission whether we're speaking or not. But for right now, we'll just have a guided meditation where we relax deeply and really focus on receiving the light. So let's begin. As you continue your breathing, we'll begin with a muscular relaxation. And just visualize and feel a beautiful, soft, golden white rain of light floating down from above, clearing your aura and your body. Just feel this warmth caressing you, passing through you, relaxing every muscle that it touches. Feel this beautiful, misty, warm rain relaxing your scalp, and feel it pouring over your forehead, caressing your face, relaxing all the muscles of the face, especially the eyes, where we hold a lot of tension. Just feel your eyeballs relax so much that they fall back into their sockets. Feel all the muscles of your face relaxing, the nose, the cheeks, the ears, the jaw, and especially the back of the tongue. When you relax the back of the tongue, you can feel the whole region of the body relax, the back of the head, the neck, the shoulders, the jaw. Feeling that flow of golden white light and warmth passing through your body, relaxing your arms, upper arms, lower arms, hands and fingers. Relaxing your chest and your upper back. Remembering your breathing, long, slow, deep breaths. Breathing in the light. And breathing out any tension that you might be feeling. Letting this wave of warmth and relaxation pass through your torso, down to your abdomen and lower back. Breathing the warmth and light all the way down to the bottom of your lungs. And breathing out any stale air, any tension that you might be holding. Feeling the warmth of the golden light flowing down to your pelvis, relaxing the whole pelvic region, front and back, especially the psoas muscles, which run down the front of the hips, left and right. Breathing in the light, breathing out any tension that you're feeling. And then feeling that wave of golden white light and warmth moving down your legs, relaxing the muscles of your upper legs, lower legs, the feet and the toes. Breathing in and breathing out. Relaxing all the muscles from scalp to toes. So let's all do another scan of the body. I'll be quiet for a moment or two while we scan and just see if you see any place where you're still holding on to tension, and consciously breathe light into that place, and then breathe out the stress and the tension in the muscles. So let's put our attention now on the root chakra, which, if you're new to this work, is at the base of the spine. And it's okay if you don't know any of this, it's all right. Just visualize it and try to feel it if you can. So let's drop the grounding cord from the root chakra all the way down to the center of the earth. And just feel how putting our attention here on the root chakra is so relaxing. Just putting the attention there opens the root chakra and helps us to connect to the earth. So feel that grounding force. Feel the anchoring quality. And let's visualize the core of the earth as golden. There's a brilliant, shining golden sun at the center of the earth. And feel your grounding cord connecting with that energy of the gold, this brilliant sun there. And commingle your energy with that very high vibration of gold. And relax into it. Breathing deeply, letting go. Feeling gravity gently pulling you towards the earth. And relaxing into the embrace of Mother Earth like a little baby would be cradled in the arms of its mother. Just letting go. Just breathing in the present moment. Being right here, right now. Nowhere else to go. Nothing to do. Just being. Just relaxing. Just receiving. Receiving the light. Receiving the love and the healing energy. Letting go into it. Completely yin, receptive. And draw that earth energy gently up into the soles of your feet. Just feeling how grounded you are and how safe you feel. There's something very safe about being cradled in the arms of the mother. And draw the energy up your legs, all the way up to the root chakra and into the core of your being, known in Sanskrit as the Sushumna, the core of light within each of us, the core of enlightenment within each of us. And see it as a beautiful radiant tube of light, golden white light, running down your body from head to root, crown to root, right in front of your spine, the physical spine. And let's draw the energy all the way up the core, up the Sushumna, all the way up to the crown, the top of the head. Opening up the crown, feeling the crown chakra sitting on the top of the head like a crown that a king or a queen would wear. Opening up like a 1,000-petaled lotus, unfurling petal by petal. And again, it's okay if you don't feel this. You can just visualize it and set the intention that you'd like to feel it one day, and that will happen. But I know most of you are long-time meditators and you know what this is, so let's open our crowns and connect to the one mind that we all are. And let's send that core energy up, out through the top of the head, out into formless space, out into the void amongst the stars. And let's connect it up with whatever you feel is a source of universal energy for you. It might be a star, or our sun, or the central sun of our galaxy, or a spiral galaxy, or a group of angelic beings, ascended masters. Just send it up there and connect to that source of light and love and universal energy that you are connected to. And allow that energy to come down into your body. Draw it down. And feel it filling you up. You might visualize it as that golden white rain that we were seeing before. That mist of warmth and love fills up your aura, fills up your body. You might see a group of angelic hands above your head pouring the light down into you. Just allow yourself to receive it. And fill up with it. Imagine every cell of your body like a miniature sponge soaking it up. Trillions of little sponges soaking up the light, filling you up so much that your arms fill up and the light shoots out your fingertips. Filling up your legs so much that the light shoots out the tips of your toes. Just relaxing deeply into this, breathing into it. So while we receive, I'll allow you to just continue to receive while I say a little prayer and invocation for our call today. We call on the Great Spirit, Divine Mother, Father God, the Self that we all are. That spark of the infinite flame that we all are. We call on all of the beings in the invisible realms who surround us in the highest love and support. We invite you into our sacred circle today. We ask that you please surround us in a cocoon of golden white light and love and healing energy. Guide our conversation into the highest love and the highest wisdom. Hold our hands as we walk this path during such challenging times into our soul's highest purpose. And we offer our deepest gratitude for this opportunity. For this opportunity to share our love today in this sacred circle, whether we're here live or in the future, it doesn't matter. We're all part of the same field. And we also give thanks for the opportunity to be incarnate in these beautiful bodies for this amazing pivotal moment on planet Earth, our fragile blue planet that hangs in outer space like a little blue gem. What a gift to be here as we pivot between paradigms, opening up to a new consciousness, the consciousness of love, which is who we truly are. Pure love. So we give thanks with deep, deep gratitude. Alalaho. Alalaho, if you're new, is Tibetan for Amen. And it means, isn't it wonderful? So now I invite you to come into your body and into the room, and if you like, to slowly wiggle your fingers and toes and open your eyes if you want to. Otherwise, you can just stay in meditation. I'm so happy to be with you. These calls are a highlight for me and Leslie every month. Even though we're not physically present with each other, this is the best we can do for the CoreLight community, to be together online and feel you on the inner planes. And I'm happy today. As I said, if you missed the first part of the call, I just am getting a strong feeling to open up the mic at the end of the call so we can have questions and sharing live today. So if you have a question or a sharing, please write it down so it can be concise at the end of the call and we can have as many people share as possible. And you can also write in on the Q&A board if you like. And we'll read things later too. So I wanted to start today with one of my favorite Rumi poems. It's called The Guest House. And I know if you've been around, you've heard it before, so forgive me for that, but it's always a nice one. So I'm just going to go ahead and read it. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of all its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. I never get tired of hearing that poem, so I hope you appreciate it. I wanted to speak today about truth. And I wonder if you're feeling what I'm feeling. There's so much happening on the inner planes right now. Are you feeling that? It's like, it's difficult to describe, but it's as though nothing is as it seems. And it feels a little bit like we're in a kind of a holding pattern until somehow more is revealed to us in the physical reality. And it's almost like the image I get is like the roots of a plant that are growing, but the plant is not really growing much, but you can sense that the roots are growing a lot, and you can't see them, but you know it's happening, and they're preparing the plant for a growth spurt. So that comes later. And that's how it feels to me right now. So I wonder if you're tuning into that. It's this sense of wanting to search for the truth. Like, what is really going on here? What's happening in our world right now? And, that is it's a trait of human consciousness. It's very normal. We all want this. We all want to know the truth at some level of our being. We want to know what's going on. And I know sometimes that translates for a lot of us into scouring the internet, or watching a lot of news, or searching in the outer world to try to discover what's really going on. And I'm not sure what you all are doing, but for the last few months, I have just taken a huge step back from all of that. It has just felt like there's no energy behind that for me whatsoever. And I'm not suggesting that you do what I do, or that you not watch the news or read the news if you need to. It's always okay to do some of that, but I think it's really important to remember that whatever time we're spending on that outer search, it's time that we're not spending focusing on holding a high consciousness. Not that the two are mutually exclusive. It's just, I don't know about you, I find it very difficult to hold a high consciousness in that mode of, searching for what's really going on. And again, we've talked about this almost every month, but it feels to me like the most important thing we can all be doing right now is focusing on holding a high consciousness. And that translates into joy and love and all the higher states of the heart, like gratitude, generosity, allowing creativity to flow, whatever it is that works for you, that puts you in a high consciousness. Focusing on that is the greatest gift we can give right now. And so if you're spending a lot of time searching the internet for the truth, or, diving into the news, searching the media, it's best to remember that the truth is inside each of us. So I feel like it's a really good time right now to remember that the truth is inside us, and to be practicing our intuitive abilities, to practice what Leslie always called grounding on the core. And what that means is essentially using your intuition, grounding on the core of enlightenment within you, not grounding on information outside, not grounding on money and house and car and relationship and job and all those things don't really ground on. And look, that's a big sweeping statement, so it's obviously easier said than done, but it is a practice. It's not to beat ourselves up if we find ourselves grounding on those things. That's just human nature. That's just what we do. But it is a really powerful practice. to ground on spirit, to ground on our spiritual practices, perhaps you could say. I mean, that's not grounding on the core, but it's the beginning of it. It's grounding on the ultimate truth with a capital T. It's grounding on love with a capital L. It's grounding on that enlightenment inside each of us. And so I guess that also means practicing witnessing, practicing especially holding that neutral observer, noticing the times when we tend to act on our habitual ways of thinking and behaving, our habits of thought and mind, those grooves in our ego that keep us in a certain loop. It's really important to practice witnessing those habits of mind right now. I want to give an example here just to bring this down into a practical level. There was a great video that had gone viral. Somebody shared with me. It was a doctor, a woman doctor, who gave probably the most scientific and lucid and informative talk on, I don't want to use the word, on the shot in the arm. But even though it was such a great talk and really grounded in science and grounded in fact, but many people started doubting what she was saying, doubting her science because her politics were on the far right. And so, I give that example just because that's an example of a habit. If we have a habit of just dismissing anything that's either on the far right or the far left, or it has a certain label, whatever that label might be for you, that you tend to dismiss. This is a great time to watch ourselves behaving that way and to keep an open mind and to practice neither believing nor disbelieving. And I know we talk about this almost every month, but again, this is the main practice right now, I believe. It's what Carl Jung said, holding the tension between the two sides of any polarity and allowing room for a third option to manifest. And that third option is always the transcendent state. So I feel like that is the practice. It's a long-term practice that we're all doing right now, holding that tension between all the polarities. There's so many extreme polarities, and they're getting more extreme, as you know. And also another practice that helps me a lot, and I wonder if you're doing this at all, but it's a practice of remembering throughout the day that we are multidimensional beings. So I wonder how much time you're spending every day on remembering that you're a multidimensional being. I find it really helpful just to stop occasionally and remember that that's who I am. I'm not this body. Excuse me, I'm not this name. I'm not this ego. I am that higher awareness. I am the soul. I am the light. I'm the love. I'm that multidimensional self with capital S. And whenever I do that, I'm reminded of something. I remember that I heard a channel say this a few months ago, and it really, really riveted me. It was that in the eyes of our spiritual guides, we are seen as superheroes. So I love that image, because we tend to look at our spiritual guides as the superheroes, as the superior ones who know it all and see it all, and are, we're just these lowly little beings who ask for help all the time. But the truth of it is that we are very courageous souls. Any soul who chooses to come down and incarnate into the density here of the third dimension and into forgetfulness is very courageous. We come here to have this experience of separation and forgetfulness. And it takes a huge amount of courage to live a life in this system of separation. It's really challenging, especially right now. And it seems like, it feels like we're at the peak of the density. We're at the peak of the separation, the nadir, the low point. But even though the divisions are so extreme, and even though the polarization is intensifying so much and accelerating, it seems, it's tempting to think that we are at this low point of human evolution. We couldn't sink any lower. But the truth is that the vibration of the planet and the vibration of human consciousness has been ascending higher and higher for centuries. So I think it's important to remember that and to temper our temptation, to think so low of ourselves right now that we've ruined the earth, that and I'm not saying what we're doing is good, but I'm just saying that the truth of it is that ascension has been happening for millennia, even though it doesn't seem that way right now. If you've ever read David Hawkins' book, Dr. David Hawkins' book, Power versus Force, he talks about this. I know most of you are familiar with it, so I'm not going to go into depth, but for those of you who might not have heard of it, he is a PhD, awakened doctor who developed a scale of measuring consciousness from 0 to 1,000, and he found a way of testing to measure the power of a thought form, the power that's held in anything, whether it's an event in history or a person or a thing or whatever it is. And he talked about this, and he talked about how, he tested periods of time going all the way back thousands of years, and he showed that consciousness is actually ascending, that we are ascending in vibration steadily, and it comes and goes in waves, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, but we're actually reaching a crescendo. It's like the way it feels to me, and what I believe he's saying is it's like we're about to have a breakthrough. We're reaching this crescendo in consciousness, and so to me that gives me something to hold on to. In a down moment where everything looks very bleak, I have to remember that first comes the breakdown of something, the breakdown of the old ways and the old systems that, which are being shaken up and falling apart. And it's often that way in our personal spiritual journey too. You have to get through those challenges before you can have the breakthroughs and before you see the gift in the challenge, and before you can step into that new higher state of consciousness. So it's going to be true for this collective shift that we're experiencing right now. It's really uncomfortable, but it's a necessary growth phase for us. And I think it's important to acknowledge that the collective fear is really, really high right now and really intense. And I would say that's the overriding vibration around the whole earth, but especially in the United States. Everybody who I talk to there, and maybe you'll want to share about this later when we open up. I don't know if you want to talk about that or not, but I'm just aware everybody that I know in the U.S. is saying the same thing. Like, most people are in fear. There's a lot of it. It's intense. So it's tempting, because of the fear, to believe in whatever the propaganda is about the fear. Be afraid of whatever, and there's doom and gloom, and we should be afraid of death and afraid of fill in the blank. But the truth is, there's no such thing as death anyway. And I know we all know that intellectually, but the truth of it is we don't die. Nobody dies. And even though there's this great shake up, wake up event happening on Earth, it's important to remember that there is no such thing as death. And so we really don't need to fear it. And I know, it's always sad when we experience the death of someone we love, or we experience the end of something that we've loved, like a relationship or a job, or moving from a house we loved, or when our children leave home, or whatever it is. So I'm not trying to downplay the importance of grieving, or the loss that we feel when things we love go away. I know that that's really important. The grieving process is essential. It's important to give the heart its due and allow yourself to feel whatever you need to feel. I don't know about you, but probably most of us are aware of someone who's died recently. I had a very, very close friend leave her body just last week. And so while I found myself grieving, I was also so aware. It seems like the veils are so thin right now. I was so aware of her joy. She was so happy to be free of the body. So I was with, like I said before, if you heard the first part of the call, I was in the Western Cape with my friend Anna, and this person was a mutual friend of ours, and we both were very aware. We observed her flying around, having fun. It was like she was zipping around the earth, blessing all of us, all of her friends, her family, making her completions with the earth, saying goodbye. And then after, I don't know, like a week or so, she was gone. It was like I couldn't feel her anymore. She'd vanished. It was like she'd gone off to cruise the stars, and she'd said her farewell. And it was such a beautiful thing to experience, and it was so palpable for me that I actually, when I tuned into that, I couldn't grieve anymore. It was like I could feel, even though I was so close to her, and I will miss her terribly, her physical body, I know she's there with me, and I know I'll see her again when we're on the other side. But also, she was just so happy to be free that I thought, wow, what a great reminder that we don't need to fear death. And that sense of freedom that I felt in her, it was a reminder for me that we can have that sense of freedom while we're in our body. The way we get to that place is by living a life free of fear. And I feel like that's one of the main reasons that we come here, that we incarnate on this planet. We come here to live life fearlessly. And if you read the books of the NDE survivors, the near-death experience survivors, they all return, most of them return with that message that there's nothing to be afraid of. We don't die. They're so reluctant to come back into a body because it was so wonderful on the other side. But they also say, like, I know now, I'm so happy I get a second chance because I know that I don't have to be afraid of anything ever. There's nothing to be afraid of. So that's just very comforting for me. And because there's so much fear right now, and especially the fear of death, I just thought it might be important to talk about that for a moment, and to remember that so much of life is about the opportunity that we're given in every moment to choose love over fear. So one of the best practices that I've been reminded of lately is how wonderful it is to give yourself the gift of a news blackout. The media is one of the main sources of fanning the flames of fear. And, if it's not about COVID or our health, it's about politics or the state of the earth or some kind of disaster or whatever it is. So it's such a welcome relief to give yourself a news blackout. If you haven't done that for a while, I highly recommend it. And I'm just to be clear, I'm not saying that it's good to indulge in denial or avoidance or suppression. That's not what I'm talking about, because that also doesn't work, as we all know. It doesn't lead to a good place. But like I mentioned before, the time that we spend on scouring the internet for news that we feel might be holding some truth, that we're looking for, that's time that we're not spending on holding the high consciousness and practicing things like joy. and practicing self-care and practicing loving, and all of those practices that are the things that are actually going to help to create the shift that we're all praying for. So holding that high consciousness is the way that we can help the earth most right now. Whatever it takes for us to do that is the best practice we can do. And remembering that the highest manifestation of the spiritual path is joy. True joy, true joy. And we're not talking about the joy we get from, a new toy or, some object or a new relationship or money or whatever it is. True joy is that joy that's within, the joy that we get from knowing who we truly are. And that's the highest vibration there is. So I wanted to talk about remembering who we truly are. It's so much about witnessing right now, and I know we talk about that a lot. Witnessing, if you're new, witnessing is the neutral observer. It's the part of us that sees life from a detached perspective, remembering who we truly are as we go through life, dancing with the polarities of negative and positive that are in front of us all the time, like the fulcrum of the seesaw. And so we need to remember to witness. It's essentially remembering to remember. Remembering to remember that we are multidimensional beings. We're these vast, eternal beings. And that we're just here in these bodies for a little while, experiencing the density and the forgetfulness. And we're having fun on the playground, right, with all the other kids. And I know I'm being a little facetious because I know sometimes it doesn't feel like a lot of fun. But the truth is that we're these courageous superheroes. And we have all these superpowers, and we've just forgotten about that for a little while. So it's important to remember it. And there's something else I wanted to share with you. This reminds me of something that happened to me recently. It's a little thing, but it was actually big for me, so I wanted to share it. I have this daily prayer that I've said for years and years and years, and it goes with my meditation ritual every morning. And I recently found myself changing the prayer. So I wanted to share that part with you in case it resonates and triggers anything for you. It's about, I was invoking my spiritual guides. I always, at the beginning of my meditations, I always name my spiritual guides. I call them in and I ask for their support, and I name them before the meditation. And then what I do after I've named them is I end the prayer by saying, I bow to you. And I place flowers of devotion on the altar of my heart for you, and I burn incense of gratitude for you. And to me, that's always been so important because I love my spiritual guides, and I always want to honor them and recognize them, and that it's a true devotion that I feel to them. But there was something about the prayer that was just niggling a little bit. I couldn't define it, but it just made me feel a little uncomfortable in the past month or so, and I was puzzled by it. So I started to look at it, really do a little self-inquiry around it, and when I asked why that was, I realized that it had a little bit of superior-inferior quality to it, like they're higher and I'm lower. And I didn't want to get rid of the prayer completely because, as I said, I love and honor my guides and I want to show that devotion. But I decided to keep the prayer, but to preface it a little differently. So what I say now is I say, from one superhero to another, I bow to you. I offer flowers of devotion and burn incense of gratitude. So I share that with you just because to me it's a small thing, but it made a big difference to just give ourselves those reminders that we are superheroes, that we are these courageous, amazing beings who came down to have this experience and to serve at this time, to serve with the collective shift right now, even though we knew it would be a big challenge. So it's also, I'm finding a really good time right now to review life, to just take a look at life in all of its aspects, in any aspects that you choose to, and change whatever's not working for you, whatever's not supporting you. So, for example, letting go of something that's old and giving energy to something that's new. Excuse me. Taking the next step in life, whatever that needs to be, whatever it looks like. It might look like taking a little risk or a big risk. It might be about purging your home, letting go of old habits or routines that don't feel in alignment anymore with who you are and what you want to be. Reviewing relationships, reviewing work, doing whatever you feel you need to do to release old ways, to release the things that might be holding you back energetically, and to embrace and receive anything that you feel inspires you, that brings you joy, that might help you to take a new step on your path. And it might look really simple to just ask what brings you joy right now, and then just do that, or change a small pattern just for the heck of it. Like for me, the revising the prayer is an example. A couple of other examples that have been, they seem small, but they've been really helpful to me the last few months. Is I started a new workout routine that helps my body to feel good and strong, and I started listening to new music. I've been trying to find new music that inspires me, and I've also been playing with listening to music from my youth, listening to music that I listened to in high school. And I read a study. I don't know if you know about this, but there was a study done. They put a group of people, I think it was men, in a house. These guys were in their 80s, I think, and they put them in a house that had been decorated. Like every single item in the house was from their teenage years, which maybe were the 1950s or something. So literally old television set with old TV shows, old magazines, all the furniture, everything dated to the 1950s, and the music that was playing. And what they discovered, they monitored the health of these men, and the men actually were anti-aging. They were getting younger physically, improving their health. And they did, I think it was a control study where they had another group of men in a normal house, and those men did not have this experience. So I've been experimenting with that and listening to the music I listened to in high school, which was the late 70s, early 80s. So anyway, you might try that. It's kind of fun. And also, I was telling you about the course that I developed with my friend Anna Breitenbach. So that's also been a joy. Develop a new course, something creative. I feel like that's one of the things that's really important right now, to engage in something creative, even if it's just making little drawings or dancing or singing, whatever it might be. So these are practices that are going to be supportive in the short term, but they're also going to be helpful in preparing for the long term as well. Like like the long distance runner who's pacing herself. She needs to keep a pace so that she can make the long run, and that might mean a little extra self-care or going a little slower, whatever you need to do, because I think we can probably all feel that we're still going to be facing big changes in the months and years ahead. There's still this long-term change coming down the pike, the big shift. But for now, I think it's important to do these things that we know how to do, and the things that we talk about all the time, and you know them by now if you've been around. It's the practicing witnessing, practicing self-care and self-love, and doing our self-inquiry work, and letting go of anything that stands in the way of those processes, of those practices. And And then moving forward with all the things that give us a sense of meaning and purpose in our lives and inspire us, that help us feel creative. So if you don't have that right now, if you're not in a place where you're doing those practices, it might be good to just start really small. Just do one little thing. Sing along to a song, dance to a song, maybe do a little drawing or paint or something and just play with color. Another simple, easy thing, as I mentioned, is cleaning the house or just doing a purge of the house, but letting go, purging, letting go of the old and bringing in something new and getting that creative flow moving. So we're wrapping up here. I'm looking at the time and I want to move on, but just before we do, I wanted to just talk a little bit more about purpose and meaning and also creative flow. There are some really helpful practices that we can all be doing right now if you feel moved to do this. I have found it particularly helpful. So there's some questions that we can simply ask ourselves and just journal the answers. One of the questions is, what is your purpose for this incarnation? What is your purpose? Do you know? What gives your life meaning? So asking those questions is really helpful, and writing the answers as well. And if you know the answer, try to name it in 10 words or less. There's great power whenever you can take something big and reduce it to 10 words or less. An enlightened friend of ours from California once told us, she said it, she found that if she couldn't name something in 10 words or less, she didn't know, she hadn't discovered its power yet. She didn't really understand it yet. So to ask yourself, what is your purpose for this incarnation? What gives your life meaning? To put that in 10 words or less, give that a try and see what happens for you. I find it very powerful. And if you know your purpose and if you can do that, then you can also ask, what's my next step? Is it time, for example, time to take a risk? Is it time to do something creative? What would bring me joy on this path right now? So those are all really good questions to be asking and just journaling the answers. They don't have to be long answers even, but I think now that what's happening energetically on the inner planes right now is this is a great time to think big, to dream, to open up to something new. And, even if it's a tiny little step, maybe a tiny little risk that you take to move yourself further, it has a huge impact. And I know some people are ready to take a bigger risk. If you're ready, if you've really been doing the work, you might be feeling it's time to take a leap off the cliff, metaphorically speaking. But whatever it is, wherever you are on that continuum, look at what that next step is for you, and what you need to do to move your path forward. So whether you know or you don't know, maybe you thought you knew, but now because there's been so much change, now because the world's been turned on its head, you're experiencing some kind of major change on your path as well. And I know people in all of those categories. There seem to be some people who are busier than ever, being very, very productive. And then there are some whose lives are in total dissolution. I know plenty of people who have got more time on their hands than ever before. And so you might be in those categories. You might be doing great. You might be somebody who's just feeling so much joy and inspiration that maybe you're here to help other people through the challenging time. So I feel like it's important not to feel guilty if you're if you're one of those people. If you're feeling joy and inspiration and excitement and enthusiasm, not to beat yourself up for that, not to hide it. I know it may seem unusual, but I know people who are experiencing that right now. I'm experiencing that right now. And so whatever category you fit into, you can start with simply naming what you're feeling. And if you're one of those people who's really just flying high in the light right now and you're not in the shadow, well, then maybe you can help other people to name what they're feeling. So, for example, we talked about fear, but some of the other things that are going around are confusion and despair and depression, and anger is another one. Meaninglessness, purposelessness, hopelessness. It's those bottom of the downward spiral states. There's certainly a lot of it in the collective consciousness at the moment. It's up right now for a lot of people. So I wanted to mention this just because it's normal. There's nothing wrong with this. We talked last month about it being a time of the dark night of the soul, and this is what happens during the times when we are dissolving, when we're in a time of dissolution, and we're going through a massive dissolution right now as a collective. Huge changes are happening. So it's important to remember that that's what this planet is about. We come here for that experience of change. The earth is about change upon change upon change. It's why we come, to experience the opportunities that presents. So it's a great opportunity right now for soul growth. We've got all these old forms that are breaking down. And when we're able to accept those changes and to resist them as little as we possibly can, it helps to move that process along more easily. It helps us to be in our bodies here in the density and to not get stuck in it, not get stuck in the density, and to be in this fear that is sweeping the earth, and to be in the suffering and the limitation, but not to get stuck in it. You can feel it, but you don't get stuck in it. So naming the feelings, that's the first step, and just allowing those feelings and being with them. And that's like Rumi's poem that I read, The Guest House, allowing those feelings. It might be sweeping out your house for some new delight, as he said. So witnessing those things, processing them in some way, processing the consciousness in some form. If you've been around CoreLight for any period of time, we use the Marriage of Spirit method, and that's the book that Leslie and I wrote a long time ago, 20 years ago, The Marriage of Spirit. It's a powerful way to do it, but there are many, many ways to process consciousness, to name what's happening and to release that energy. But just allowing those energies to be present, and also to let them leave when it's time to leave. We can't rush the process, but we can help it along with the witnessing and the processing, and engaging our practices, whatever practices we do. And creativity is one of those processes. It doesn't have to be Marriage of Spirit processing. It doesn't even have to be any kind of psychological or spiritual process. It can simply be creativity. That's the flow of divine energy moving through us, and that does move emotion. So I'll conclude by saying it just feels so important right now to witness and process fear. If you're feeling fear, you can do the processing, but there's some questions that you can ask yourself. You can ask, what change is happening right now that's causing the ego to feel so afraid? What change is happening that's causing the ego to feel afraid? And to remember that the ego fears change because it feels like change means death. but that's not the truth. So you ask, what is the change that's threatening the ego? And you name it, you witness it, you process it, and you remember that there's no such thing as death. The body may drop, but we continue to live, and the ego doesn't die. The ego simply goes through a metamorphosis. It's always a process of dissolution and rebirth, just like a caterpillar that becomes the butterfly. And that's what's happening to us. We're all caterpillars becoming butterfly now. I know it feels really uncomfortable, doesn't it? And the fear is really intense and really hard. We're all at different stages of the journey. I know some of us are in the pupa phase. You know, that's the pupa phase, is where the caterpillar is in its cocoon and it's literally melted into liquid. And it feels so uncomfortable and scary when we are melting down in that way, and we can't hold on to the old form. But it's a very powerful time. It's the time of the most potential, highest potential. So important to remember. And some of us have already reformed, and we might have emerged from the cocoon, but maybe we're just sitting on the leaf with our wings drying. And I know some people have started flying a little bit, and we might be feeling some inspiration and some creativity flowing. But I think it's just important to remember that we're all on that continuum. We're all on that trajectory of the caterpillar becoming the butterfly. And so it's important to just look at that and see where you are on that trajectory. And just remember that you're becoming a butterfly, like we all are. So, okay, that's really all I wanted to share. And I see we've got quite a bit of time left here to do some questions and sharing. So as I said before, I invite you to raise your hand. A reminder, let's see, you raise your hand by pressing *2. So if you press *2 on your phone, you can raise your hand and share. And again, it's important to say everything you want to say, and also just be as concise as you can so that we can have more people participating. And I'll try to get to some of the questions that are written down as well. Okay, so one hand is up. I'm going to call on this person here. And it says Santa Cruz, California. Wait, hold on. I think I pressed the wrong button. Oh, shoot. I pressed the wrong button. Hold on. Let me get you back. I see you there. Okay. You should be unmuted now. Are you there?
Hi, can you hear me? This is Ruth.
Hey, Ruth. Yes, I can hear you now.
Hi, Brad.
Yeah,
hi,
welcome.
Everybody. It's
Hi.
Glenn and I, and we're not in Santa Cruz, actually. We're in the Eastern Sierra, gratefully. And I want to say hello to the community. I am aware of, I have this really big concern, and it's weighing a little bit on my heart, and I just would like to share it with the community. And it's my experience, what's happening in the collective. We just left the coastal areas, which are much more crowded, and my observation is that people are feeling a lot of pressure and confusion about the vaccine. And I have been studying this for some time. Glenn and I both had COVID in December, and then went through it. It was a very bad flu for us. It was worse for Glenn. And we learned because we were in this situation, we learned that there are alternative treatments for COVID that are not being used by mainstream Western medicine. And our experience was profound. It's like the treatments really worked, some of these other drugs. And So let me pause for a second. I just need to slow down.
And Ruth, while you pause, let me mention for people who don't know you that you are a registered nurse. You're an RN.
40
retired,
years.
Right?
Yeah.
40
yeah,
years.
40 years.
Okay. So that.
Yeah. I've been in medicine for a long time. Yeah, watching this. And so what's happening currently is, so at first I was really upset that these alternative therapies and medicines weren't being used to assist people through COVID like we were able to find. But now what's happening, we've moved into this new stage where there's this confusion about the vaccine, and it's putting a lot of pressure on families, on friendships. I've heard stories of, groups of friends in small communities deciding they will only be collective with people that have been vaccinated, and then families where, grandparents aren't allowed to see their grandchildren unless they get vaccinated, and, people aren't able to see their brothers and sisters, and the divisiveness is just, it's disturbing. And what I want to say, I just want to make sure that you all understand, this is something I can share with you, is that there is this myth that's being perpetuated by the mainstream media that getting a COVID vaccine protects you from transmitting the disease. They don't come out right out and say that, but people are talking about herd immunity being associated with a vaccine. And also people are talking about doing their civic duty by taking the vaccine. And I just want to say none of that is true. And if you look at the paperwork, even what the CDC says, what any of the authorities are saying about it, nobody is saying, in writing that the vaccine prevents transmission. The only thing that the vaccine does is improve a person's chance of not dying from COVID, possibly. It increases the antibodies to this specific strain of COVID. When COVID mutates in the next couple of years, it'll be worthless. But that's not the point. I mean, it's like any flu vaccine. But the bottom line is that this vaccine is not even truly a vaccine, because the definition of vaccine is that it prevents transmission and builds antibodies. So this one builds antibodies but doesn't prevent transmission. So the bottom line is, it's so there's this collective misunderstanding, and what I'm concerned about in our community is that people might feel confusion or pressure to get this vaccine, thinking that it's going to be helpful. The only reason to get this vaccine is if you yourself are worried about dying from COVID. And if you are worried about dying from COVID, I want to assure you that there are incredible alternatives out there that aren't being talked about. And there's something very strange and mysterious going on, and I won't begin to think I understand exactly what's happening, because I don't, but the censorship that's happening around this information is incredibly profound. I mean, there's doctors who have had incredible success with using IV vitamin C therapy with their patients, and when they go to print the story of their experience, they are censored. So Facebook, Google, you cannot find the information anywhere. And so I actually changed my browser. And so if you're interested in getting more information, you have to be really diligent and do some study, talk to people that understand tech, get away from the main feeds, the main browsers, and dig a little bit. And there's lots of information out there. And I mean, in different countries in the world, actually, if we can break through the bubble of fear that we're under with our own media hype. In the Philippines, there's one island that's starting to give all the school children vitamin C to protect them from COVID. And I mean, this is really, truly happening. And there are countries where the incident rates of COVID are dropping significantly because people are learning about the alternatives and how to use them. But we aren't hearing any of that. And I think, like I said, my main concern is if any of you are suffering from friendships or family discord about this. I just can't encourage you enough. Hold your ground and do some research. And you can say, because it is out there, that it doesn't prevent transmission, and people know this, but it still doesn't seem to be stopping this wave of confusion. And it's a weird time. And the vaccine is very, very new, and they've never in the history of medicine tried this type of vaccine before. It has not been studied. We don't know the long-term effects. So if you've had the vaccine, I don't want to put you into worry. Just relax and breathe, take your vitamin C anyways, and do your best. But if you have a choice about it, I would wait. There's a lot of unknown, and don't let yourself be pressured into it for any reason. Anyways, that's what I wanted to share.
Well, thank you, Ruth. Wow. I appreciate your sharing that. I've also done quite a bit of reading about it, and it does sound experimental. So I agree with you on that, and I'm certainly planning to wait. I don't plan to get it, actually. And you had a profound experience. What you told me, you had a profound experience. You and Glenn, you recovered fully after taking ivermectin, and so
that's right.
We got some ivermectin here in South Africa at our house too, just in case anybody were to get sick. Because, well, everybody here in our whole area is talking about it. They can't keep it on the shelves because it's been such a miracle cure for everybody who's taken it. It's like just knocks out the symptoms immediately.
It really was a miracle cure for us. Within 6 hours, I actually was awakened. I took it about 9 o'clock at night after reading and doing as much, getting as much support to try this new thing as I could. And at that point, it wasn't even FDA approved. They were saying, don't use it. But I thought, I'm going to go for it and just see. I took it at 6 o'clock at night. At about 3 o'clock in the morning, my body took a deep breath, and my lungs expanded to the point where they were so expanded that it woke me up. I could breathe again. It was startling. Like, oh, wow. My gosh, this is how it feels to take a deep breath in a healthy body.
Well, and you said that you guys were just about to... You said you were just about to go to the hospital, too. You said the symptoms were so severe that you were ready to go to the hospital, that it lasted for so long, like 3 weeks or something.
Yeah. Well, I would have... I can see how somebody could have gone to the hospital in our situation. And fortunately, we were there to work with each other and make sure to get enough fluids in, bone broth, vitamin C. There's lots of different things. And then the ivermectin is how it works. It's a very strong anti-inflammatory, and it also somehow disrupts the replication process of the COVID virus. So it does both of those things. And it's just not, and there was a recent article in the New York Times just a couple days ago talking about how it doesn't work, but that's not my experience. So I don't know what's going on or why.
Yeah, we can't know. Well, there's just so much we can't know, and that's, I think, what I've been trying to say for many months is like, it's a great time to be practicing neither believing nor disbelieving, and to just realize that nothing is as it appears right now. We don't really know what's going on. Nobody does.
Yeah. But
and also, Ruth,
pressured.
Well, that's an important piece. I just want to comment on that. Don't let yourself feel pressured. I feel like that's so important because, one of the highest spiritual teachings is that we are all sovereign beings. We do not have to put anything in our body if we don't want to. Just say no. So I feel like that's one of the very important lessons that we're here to learn right now for all of us, is to be who we are and to live our truth, whatever that is, with an open heart.
Right.
So thank you for sharing that. I feel it's really important. I think this might be why, maybe, I don't know what other people are going to share, but certainly this feels like one of the best reasons to open up to sharing. So thank you for talking about it.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you. It's great to be here with you all. Much, much love and hugs. Yeah, and stay well.
Thanks, Ruth. Lots of love.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, let's see who's next. Okay, Chris, I'm going to unmute you.
Hello,
Chris,
Brad, everyone. Yes.
Hey,
hi.
hey, Chris. How are you?
Good to hear your voice. I'm doing quite
You
well,
too.
thank you. I'm doing a little flapping these
Good.
days. My wings are starting to flap, so that feels good. The butterfly thing.
Good.
The Rumi poem reminded me, sort of from the Buddhist dimension of things. There's a story of how the Buddha one day was sitting in his dwelling or his tent, and the demon Mara comes visiting, and he wants to see the Buddha. And Mara is in Buddhist sort of narratives is kind of like the one who thwarts everything wholesome, and who is kind of like the demonic sort of tempter. And the Buddha was tempted for the whole time he sat under the Bodhi tree with all kinds of sensual pleasures and distractions and mind projections and everything. And so the Buddha's faithful attendant Ananda is there guarding the way. And he says, no, you cannot visit the Buddha. He does not like you. Go away. Right? And so Mara says, I'm sure he will welcome me. I just want to sit with him. And he said, no. Ananda's like, you cannot visit the Buddha. And the Buddha inside hears what's going on. And he says, is that Mara? Come in, dear friend, and have some tea with me. And so he comes in. Ananda is very perplexed. He is just utterly befuddled. Why on earth would he invite Mara in? And they sounded like they were old friends. And so they sit together, they have tea, they talk about all the good old days, about all the struggles they went through. And that story to me is so much like that Rumi poem, because first of all, it's not easy, I think, to hold the fear, the suffering, all the things that are sort of plaguing so many people right now. But I think in the long arc, in the pathway of our practice, not just the practice, but the pathway, at least this has been my experience, to be able to look at all of those as moments of opportunity. And I think that's really sort of the essence of that spirit of generosity that goes beyond.
Oops, Chris, we lost you there. Are you there?
Oh, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, you dropped away for a moment. I can hear you now. Can you just repeat that, please?
Sure, yeah. It was just saying that for me that's been really helpful to kind of ride the waves, and you kind of look at all of these things, not just as practice, but as a long arc, as a path that's leading somewhere, whether it's my own enlightenment or a collective awakening. That's the path we're all on, or we wouldn't be on this call. And I take a lot of comfort in the community part of it as well. So these calls have been incredibly helpful for that, and to kind of come back together every month whenever I've been able to make it. And so the other thing I want to express is profound gratitude to you, and also to Leslie, and also to Barbara when she was with us, just for kind of rerouting us and bringing us through with so much wisdom. The last thing I wanted to also say was I remembered Leslie's teaching on discernment from years ago, as you were talking earlier. What is the definition of discerning? And it's knowing the difference between truth and illusion. And the next question in my mind was like, okay, but whose truth, right? Whose truth and what illusion? Because there's the mind again trying to figure it out. Right. And so what I kind of came to was this sense of it's not about the dualistic form of truth, but it is about what truth arises from the witness that doesn't even have words or discursive thinking or rumination, but it's really kind of a deeper sense of knowing, a much more sort of intrinsic knowing. And when we can get there, it's sublime. I think the fear goes away. We're able to really respond with love and compassion to the fear, the collective chaos that people are feeling, the colonizing of our consciousness, as you've put it. So, but that discernment has a very subtle quality to it when we can get there. So, anyway, those are some things I've been realizing for myself, and grateful also to you and Leslie for all this wisdom.
Wow. Well, thank you, Chris. It's really thoughtful of you to say, and I think you bring up a really good point with the discernment. You know, in our discussion about truth, that when we do find, you know, that we can practice discernment and discover truth with a capital T, that we do know that because it does dispel the fear. The ultimate truth with the capital T is really that we are love, and love is all there is. And so anything else falls away at that point. And that is the ultimate discernment. So I think if we're, you know, if the mind is busy trying to figure out all the other niggling questions, you know, those can be distractions. It's important to come back to the ultimate truth. And I just wanted to comment on, I love that you brought up the story of the Buddha and Mara. It always reminds me of the movie The Little Buddha. And there's this great scene, you know, that scene is etched into my mind forever, where Keanu Reeves he plays the little Buddha, and he plays, you know, he's sitting under the tree and he's in his meditation, and Mara comes and does all the temptations and all the fears, and these horrors are presented and these temptations are presented, and he just remains still and unmoved, neither attracted nor repulsed to anything. And it's such a great visual. If you haven't had a chance, anybody who's listening, if you haven't had a chance to watch The Little Buddha, watch it just for that scene. It's an old movie. I think it must have been in the 90s probably. But well worth watching just for that one scene, because it gives you a great visual of what this principle is, right? That story, the famous Buddha story.
Yeah, the other thing too is, I don't know if you knew this, but the Pali term for mindfulness, sati, literally means remembering. It means remembering the source of who we are. It means remembering to bring this quality of witness and bearing witness into every moment without being sort of flying off into future or past thinking, but just really, so as you were talking about remembering, to remember, I was thinking that's exactly the definition of mindfulness, the sati term.
Wow.
The Pali term.
Wow, how beautiful. Nice. Well, thank you for sharing that. I didn't know. I haven't studied Buddhism, but it makes sense. Okay, well, thank you, Chris. Thank you so much for sharing. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is read. We had some written in questions, so I'll read one. This is from Jackie, and she says, "How do I maintain a sense of patience and balance? And what toolkit is needed when dealing with discussions of urgency in terms of planet management, when there is limiting belief on a collective scale as part of the culture's short-term decisions?" Second part of the question, knowing why this is historically instilled in Western and colonialist expansion culture, in Western and colonialist and expansionist culture, how are we able to help keep open discussions to a point of positive change when two opposing belief systems are present? How are we able to move this forward with results in a sense of grace and dignity? Wow. Well, those are great questions. Let me just, we could talk for a long time about those. Let me just see what comes here. So you're talking about maintaining patience and balance when we're dealing with the urgency of planetary management and our short-term decision-making process. So I guess what comes to mind to say is I'm reminded of what indigenous people talk about when this subject comes up about urgency, and they say, "Oh, urgency. We don't do that. we don't do urgency in our culture." And I when I heard that, because I was always, up until I heard that, I was always a person who really had a sense of deadlines and urgency and pressure, and we have to do, and we have to make this happen, and if we don't, X, Y, and Z will happen. And really, I feel like all of that sense of urgency is so much a part of the Western mind. It's part of our culture that you're calling the expansionist, colonialist Western culture. That's based in urgency and time. And the truth of it, and this was my experience, and this is, I know what the indigenous cultures are saying, but my experience is that all that did for me was create pressure and worry and fear, and the pressure is about carrying burdens, and feeling the weight of the world on our shoulders. And to me, that's part of the old paradigm, that if we can let go of our sense of urgency, that's a huge piece of this. And I'm not, I want to be clear about this. I'm not saying that what we're doing is okay and we should just let it happen. And I'm not saying that it's not important to take action. What we're doing is not okay. The pollution of the planet and the extinction of species and destruction of ecosystems and all that's going on is not okay. And yet, there is some journey here that we're all taking. There's some process that we're all part of. It's as though this had to happen in this way, and we knew it was going to happen in this way, and we knew it wasn't going to be easy, and it was going to be ugly, and we knew that somehow we would take it to the brink, but we'd come through the other side. That's what's coming. We are going to come through the other side. It would be arrogance to think that we could destroy the earth. The earth is much more powerful than we are. The earth will shake us off like fleas before she lets herself be destroyed. So the real question is, I think, more about, will humanity be able to continue its presence, its experiment here on this planet? The earth regenerates. The earth heals herself. It's been proven time and time again. I could give countless examples, like Chernobyl. Everybody thought Chernobyl would be a nuclear wasteland forever. And they're discovering now that it's actually a haven for endangered species because there are no humans there. All the humans were evacuated. But the endangered species are thriving. Anyway, that's one example of many. I'm not going to go into that. It would take too long. But the point of this is that we do need to focus on shifting our consciousness, and that includes into sustainable practices and healing the earth. And that is coming. We are doing that, and it is going to happen. It's probably going to look really ugly before we get to that place where it actually turns a corner. If you study the facts, there is an extinction happening, mass extinction. And that is disturbing, very, very disturbing. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't feel disturbed and that we shouldn't feel what we're feeling because of these terrible things happening. But I also feel like if we're beating ourselves up and pressuring ourselves with this sense of urgency, that's not going to solve any problems. I know the Native Americans talk about this. I have a friend who studied closely with the Lakota Sioux for decades. And he said the Native Americans talk about this openly. They talk about how they knew at some point they could either fight the colonialists or they could allow it to happen. And there was a part of them that knew it needed to happen, that the destruction needed to continue, that was the only way that our culture would learn. We needed to see what the destruction brings about in order to learn the lesson. And it's that famous quote of Chief Seattle that, I think it was Chief Seattle, that I may be getting wrong, but it's something like, only when the last river is poisoned, only when the last tree is cut down, only when the last fish is caught will we discover that we can't eat money. Life is actually very simple on this planet. And we're going to be rediscovering that. That's part of the new paradigm, is that we come to that simplicity within us. But we wouldn't get the lesson, and we wouldn't be able to return to that knowing, that self-realization, and the returning to the laws of nature, and the returning to sustainability, until we really took this process to its ultimate degree. So I maintain, you asked about patience and balance, and I just practice that understanding that I just spoke about to help me maintain patience and balance in the face of what's going on, in the face of all the short-term decisions that are being made. So the toolkit that's needed, meditation and egoic clearing work are the two best practices I know of to achieve awakening. And that's the greatest gift we can give the planet, is our own awakening. So I hope that helps. Let's see, you had a second part of the question. Knowing why this is historically instilled in the culture, how are we able to keep open discussions to a point of positive change when two opposing belief systems are present? How are we able to move this forward with results with a sense of grace and dignity? Well, I don't really know how we maintain grace and dignity when it's really quite an ugly experience. quite a difficult, challenging, and ugly experience to be going through. So I don't know how much grace and dignity there will be, but we can hold our own grace and dignity. And when there are opposing belief systems present in these discussions, so much of it is about how we respond to that. And what, I don't know, Jackie, how much you've been around CoreLight, but the work that we do is really based in the reconciliation of opposites. It's based in the marriage of spirit processing, where we're holding the tension between the two sides, where it's an ancient practice. It's actually called Tantra. Most people hear Tantra and they think of sexual Tantra, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about reconciling opposites, bringing the polarizations together into unity. And we can do that within us. And it's when we do that within us that it manifests in the outer world. So that's the point of positive change you're asking about, is that when we hold that within ourselves, and then we become an example to others. We can't force others into that. So I hope that helps answer your question. We could go on for a long time about it, but I hope that's good. Okay, so I want to just look at, we've got a lot of hands, and I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to get to all the hands. I apologize. But I also promised I'd look at the bulletin board on the webcast. So let me just quickly go take a look there and see if there's some written in questions there. Sorry, that's not happening. Give me another second here. There it is, Q&A board. Okay, let me see if anybody's written in here. Oh boy, there's a lot. I'm sorry. I'm not going to be able to get to all these, but let me just check out a couple here. Bear with me. Okay, Lisa writes from Guatemala. My question was about truth. Coincidence? That's very interesting because I talked about truth. I don't watch news whatsoever, but there is uncertainty about almost everything, including multidimensionality. Only simple things are the truest. Truth is aligned with innocence and compassion. Uncertainty is a tremendous teacher, but it is not easy. Some days I truly feel vulnerable and ungrounded, despite all the meditation and processing. Blessings to all. Well, I think you speak for all of us, Lisa. Thank you for that sharing. Uncertainty is hard. You know, this path of holding the tension between the two opposites is hard. It's not easy, especially now when things are getting so challenging. So I'm with you on that, and you have my compassion. Everybody who's practicing this has my compassion, but we're all in this together. So, you know, strength in numbers, right? And just to remember, it doesn't take half the planet to make the shift. It only takes a small percentage of us. So if there are enough of us, it's like Carl Jung said to his students back during the Cold War, when they asked him if he thought there was going to be a nuclear war between Russia and the U.S., and if we'd all be melted down by the bomb, and if war could be avoided, and he said, if enough of us can hold the tension between the two sides, we will avoid war. We'll avoid that, and that's exactly what happened. So I feel like that's what's coming for all of us. That, you know, we're practicing this. It's not easy, but we need to do it. We need to continue. Okay, so somebody else has written in here. Christine has written in. Thanks to Ruth, wonderful info. I want to add the difference in the first two vaccines that perhaps have never been tried before are that they insert DNA that is not human into people who receive it. As a medical intuitive of 38 years, it feels very, very wrong for overall health on many levels. Last night I had to go into a gas station for directions, and the man had no mask and said, "Come here closer so I can show you." I said, "No, I won't go anywhere near you." And he replied, "I got the vaccine." To which I replied, "I have not." I am amazed at the herd ignorance and the forces behind the manipulation going on. This is such a time for our spiritual warriorness and such deep compassion for all of it during this extraordinary shift of the ages. Much gratitude for Leslie and Brad and the frequencies and space you're holding. Well, thank you. Thank you, Christine. I appreciate that. Thank you for your sharing. I'm just going to go back now to the hands. We have a number of hands, so let me call on one here. Libby, you have the microphone. Libby, are you present? Libby in Greece? Libby, I've unmuted you. I see two of you, so let me unmute the other one. Hold on. Okay, Libby in Greece, are you available? Can you hear us? Libby, I've unmuted you. Okay, Libby, we can't hear you, my dear, so I'm going to take your hand down, but if you get your audio back, do come back, do raise your hand again. Okay. And so we're down to 10 minutes left, so I think we'll take one more hand, and then we'll go into our final guided meditation and prayer to close our session. Okay, so I'm calling on Linda. Linda, you have the mic.
Can you hear me, Brad?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I
have
can.
Just one quick, okay, mine is a very quick question. Can you give me the spelling of the medication that Ruth was referring to early? I have a couple of different spellings of something that sounded like either ivermectin or ivermectin. I don't know
Okay.
what that is.
I'll tell you. Yeah, I can spell it. It's ivermectin.
Okay.
It's spelled I like ice cream, V like Victor, ER,
Yes.
M like Mary,
Right.
E like easy, C,
yeah.
C like Charlie, T like Thomas, N like Nancy. Ivermectin.
Ivermectin, THIN?
No H.
TIN. Okay. Ivermectin.
No, V like Victor. V like Victor. Ivermectin.
Okay. Ivermectin. Okay.
That's right.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, my dear. Okay, well, everybody,
You're welcome.
we're out of time. Yes, thank you, Linda. Okay, I'm going to mute you now, and we're going to move to our final closing. We're going to have a little short prayer and closing meditation. So thank you, everybody. It's been delightful to hear your voices again, and I'm so sorry we didn't have time to call on everybody or to read all the questions. But please join us next month, and we'll do more. So if you have sharing or question, please send it in by email. It's easier for us if we have things ahead of time so that we can prepare it. That helps us to save time, and it also helps us be more prepared. So thank you, everybody, for your contributions and sharing. All right, let's close our eyes and take a few long, slow, deep breaths. And just relax the body. I know sometimes the talking stirs up the energy, and it's good to breathe and just release. If anything stirred you up during our conversation, just breathe in the light and breathe out the stirring up. Breathe in calm. And breathe out any shadow or tension that you might be experiencing. Breathe in peace. And breathe out negativity. Just relaxing, just letting go. I can feel that conversation did stir it up for most of us. But it's also fun. I can feel the joy and the inspiration in getting to hear each other again. And that's always wonderful. So breathing in the joy, and breathing out any limitations. Breathing in love, breathing out fear. Just letting go. Let's put our attention, while we continue our breathing, let's put our attention in the heart. You can even take your finger and tap that area right in the center of your chest. You can find your sternum. It's the bone that sticks out the most in your chest area, and tap the sternum and tap just below it. That's the heart chakra area. And just awaken it. and feel it opening like a flower in front of you. Feel it blossoming, a beautiful pink rose opening out in front of you, unfurling itself petal by petal. Smell the rose fragrance. Feel the opening of the heart. Visualize a radiant ball of light like a miniature sun right in the center of your chest, inside your body, where the flower emerges from. That beautiful radiant sun is the energy of love. It is a wellspring that exists inside each of us, and love naturally bubbles up from there. It is the source of love, the source of who we are. So see it radiating like that sun inside your chest. See the light expanding inside you, filling up your chest cavity, beautiful pink light. And you might feel a smile coming onto your face. If you don't, you can cheat and turn up the corners of your mouth and just smile a little bit, even if you don't feel like it. Because when you smile, the brain releases its happy hormones and you get a free dose of joy. And when you're in that state of joy, you naturally open your heart and you naturally feel loving. So this is a little cheat to just smile. Usually we think we smile because we're happy, but you can also smile and then become happy. You become happy because you smile. So just feel that love, feel the joy radiating inside your chest, and let it fill you up, let it fill your whole body, let it fill up your whole aura, and engulf you in a beautiful cocoon of love and light. Just be that radiant ball of love. See yourself, your whole body sitting inside this radiant ball of love, this radiant sun that originates inside your chest. And I invite you now, as you feel joyful and happy and loving, and feel that permeating through your entire system, I invite you to feel our circle, our sacred circle. There are usually a couple hundred people or more, a few hundred people who join these calls, not all present live, but usually a few hundred listen later. And we are a community all around the earth. So just take that in, that we are heart-centered beings, beings of love and consciousness, surrounding the earth, creating a network of love around the earth. So I invite you to feel everyone in the CoreLight community and all the new people who are joining us for the first time. We invite you to attune to this web of light, and let's all feel and visualize that web of light surrounding the earth. It's a web of light and love and joy. Even if you're not feeling those things right now, it's okay. Just send your positive intentions, send loving thoughts to everyone in our circle and to the earth. And let's see that beautiful pink ball of energy that we've surrounded ourselves in. Let's see it expanding to encompass the whole earth. Let's feel all of the earth, all of humanity, all of her ecosystems, her animals, plants, rocks, oceans, rivers, mountains. Everything surrounded in this beautiful cocoon of love and light and healing energy. So, Great Spirit, we send our love to our beloved Mother Earth and all of her inhabitants. We pray for love and light to prevail. We pray to know love and truth inside each of us. And we wish that for all of humanity. And that begins with ourselves. Hold our hands as we walk out into the world now. Help us to carry this love and light and share it with others. Hold our hands as we walk into our soul's highest purpose in this incarnation, into our soul's highest destiny. May our every breath, may our every step spread love and light and healing everywhere we go. And with deep, deep gratitude, we close our circle for today. We're so grateful for this time that we share together, and we're grateful for this beautiful cocoon of love and light that has surrounded us today. We take it in and we carry it forward with us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I thank you, everyone. This is goodbye for now. I look forward to seeing you again next month. I send you all my love, and Leslie does too. We're radiating love to you from here in South Africa. Many, many blessings. Bye for now.